There you go.
Welcome, everybody.
Morning, everybody, and afternoon if you're somewhere else. Um, we normally have this type of meetings where we have people from all over the world, so we're conscious
Yeah.
that
Europe. Yeah, it's already afternoon.
you're right. And some other places in the world is already late. So if you grabbing a coffee, matcha, mate, any other thing, or a beer, maybe I don't know. It's
Yeah,
noon somewhere.
it's happy hour
Um,
sometime
it's happy
somewhere.
hour sometimes, so we're glad you're joining today. So we want to share about this. You want to start, Sergio?
Yeah, I would love to kick this session off. This is an idea that Nat and I have been for a while about talking on how AI is changing the way we look at careers, recruiting, getting a job, progressing in a job. And I think for that reason, it's super relevant that we talk about our own backgrounds and introduce ourselves and our companies because what we have been doing is super relevant to this conversation. So, not I leave to you to introduce yourself first.
Wonderful, wonderful, and thank you for joining us again. So I'm Natalie Gil or Gil, where I pronounce that in Spanish. I'm co-founder and CTO on Darshana, and this conversation, as Sergio mentioned, matters to me a lot professionally. I was born and raised in Peru. I work globally. I work for companies like Microsoft, Goldman Sachs in New York, Amazon Web Services. I went to grad school in US too, to MIT and Carnegie Mellon, and I've been working around tech companies in Latin America for some time. I also work from in several countries in all the continents. So I ran into some walls when I was doing this, my credentials, and see what I did. I actually, for some of my jobs, they call like all the way to companies they didn't exist anymore in countries that maybe that's those records are not there. So across borders is difficult to do that, and then because of that and because of other things, algorithms filter me like in seconds, and because there was no reference of what I've done. And then right now there's a lot of people like I met in the way, talent engineers, designers, product managers from all over the world, and they are also local candidates. And me myself being a global candidate for jobs, I witness and help, and they help me too to get to some other opportunities. So we for Darshana, we run Verifiable credentials. This is career intelligence. We help not only people but also companies, organizations, universities, and all the ecosystem to get that data truthful. And this is portable, this is global, and this is based on global standards. So this is not only aspirational, this is the new world. And then with AI, this part of the data and all the things that were done is being like for us better, because now we have a say on the data and the way things are done and how we keep humans in the loop. So I'll switch to Sergio. And about Sergio, we met years ago. We have completely different paths, and we agree in a lot of things and others not. You'll know right now during presentation, but this is amazing because we have the space to share, to amplify what we learn, and also to have fun, which is the
Yeah,
most important thing.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nat. And I think we agree way more than we disagree. So with Nat, we've been collaborating together since I think 10 years. In the past, I used to be a UX professional and a consultant, and that's how we met, teaching a course actually. Uh, but I am the founder, CEO, and I call myself builder these days of Get On Board. Get On Board, it's a job recruitment platform for tech professionals. It's mainly focused on Latin America, but it's open to everybody who wants to get a remote job. We have lots of them. many of them in English, many of them from North America or US based companies. We've been doing this for a while. Get on board turns 15 today, so
Oh,
that's lots of lots of water under the bridge, and lots of experience and lots of data too. And I'm gonna share a little bit of that data that gives us super interesting insights on what's going on in the job market. To date, we've seen more than 3 million job applications. We are approaching 2 million professionals registered on the platform. So that's a lot of data, lots of things going on. So that's part of what I want to share today. And me myself, I find myself building and coding with AI 80-90% of my time. That has transformed my own career too. And we've been thinking through this a lot. In fact, Nat and I joined to create an artificial intelligence course a couple of years ago. So uh, that's where all these conversations started, I think. So I think we can jump to what we are discussing today. This is the agenda. I want to just jump straight to the first point, which is probably the most salient for people, and about how AI is killing tasks and also killing roles based on tasks. And this is something that is happening a lot in the tech industry, because many of those careers were defined as collections of tasks. So data analyst has the analysis implicit on the title, UX designer has the design implicit on the title, and so on. And the thing about this is that responded well to this factory software factory model, that many of us started our careers within this framework. It's been around for at very least 15, maybe 20 years. But many of those tasks and much of that machine is getting commoditized now by AI. So anybody who defined their careers as a collection of tasks or capabilities is now finding that those capabilities are perfectly possible with AI. And I think part of the identity crisis of many people in the tech industry responds to that in particular. If I define my career around the things I do, and now the things I do are done much faster and usually better via AI, where am I? Where do I? Mm, what does that leave for me? And I think that you can you from your side and your experience, you've been seeing this shift too.
yes, I've seen that. For instance, for myself, I think I'm one of the best examples of that. I did a lot of very technical. So I started as I'm an engineer, so I am a systems engineer. I do systems engineering for technology for some years, super hardcore. Some skills that maybe are no longer relevant, apparently, because I used to do email and directories. And so we needed to deploy that infrastructure from scratch for big companies. Now that's no longer a skill anymore. Most companies in the world they use cloud-based AI email, but then there's still companies running that. So that's a skill for for competitor companies, maybe Microsoft, Google, and just you count some more. So again, those skills that were good for me right now, I can use to build complex systems. But if I put like email engineer, like maybe I can be hired for a couple of companies. So all the all the roles that are there that right now there, and the other thing, Sergio, what's going on is today is that they're not aging gracefully. So one role that you put with the title and the skills is gonna go all like in months. So that's the other
Yeah.
thing. Even the data analysts, UX designers, they've been there for a lot of, and you'll see the titles after they're like crazy.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that most of the work that I do right now, repetitive tasks from the technical side and let's say administrative side, like replying emails and everything, they're done by AI. But because I was able to train it. And let me explain one more thing. I've been, doing technical work and then more of PowerPoint work, what I call is I did consulting, I did, managerial
Yeah.
levels and advice. And then I said, okay, I need to build. That's what we're here. I need to build. So I was back to building, and then a lot of my time is building, but a lot of my time is repetitive work, very good quality work, I'll say, but on technical side. So what I'm called today, a CTO, a builder, a full stack engineer, or just some people having fun. I don't want to call myself like that. So
That's what I wanted to share this list. This obviously it's a curated list, but it's really original job titles that are appearing, and we've been seeing in Get on Board in the last 12 months. And I think the interesting thing about these kinds of roles, what they show is these are not careers anymore. These describe missions, and I think those missions are might be super 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 specialized. I doubt that anybody specialized in such a short time in generative AI music models.
mhm.
But this is a position that now exists, and I think they illustrate the challenge of people to position themselves, and define how how well they match um, to these kinds of position. And this is what we mean by AI is making all the jobs and the tasks super fluid. Uh, and yes, many of the standard role-based task-based roles are being redefined, and they are being redefined into this. So it's like you lost the map suddenly, and you have to understand what's remaining of you that is still valid and valuable as well, uh, for these kinds of positions. And I think we can jump to the next chart. And this is data from Get on Board. We count the unique job titles posted in the platform, and we standardize them obviously to do a good match. So here you can see how much they've been increasing, and especially in the last quarter. The chart ends with Q1 2026. So here you can see the way in which roles are being differently, and I stress this is standardized titles, and still we are getting more and more of them, more and more different roles. And that, for me, it speaks to how AI is making careers and roles and positions, and how do you fit into a team much more fluid and much more specialized and much more malleable to what the project is needing right now. Uh, and the second part of the second item in our presentation, yeah, it's the second one is about how AI is multiplying applicant slop. That's the
Next
next
slide.
one. Yes. Uh, so this compounds the problem, because everybody's getting more noise. You're getting more, I won't say noise, but you're getting much more information and less standardization on the positions part. And on the applicants part, you're competing against lots of slop, and you get different kinds of slop. I think the ones that make the headlines are the fakes, and this capture is gotten quite famous by now. This candidate that didn't want to uh, put their hand over their face because they were a deep fake. They were using this kind of filter, but I think soft fraud is also becoming the norm in terms of you use AI to apply to jobs, but also you use AI to look better for those jobs, and everybody's doing the same. So basically, you are competing against lots of people who are tailoring their resumes and their cover letters and what they say about themselves to perfectly or as perfectly as possible match a specific job, and that creates a lot of noise because now the resume is no longer the signal it used to be to determine are you good for this job, because everybody is basically generating a version of their resume that perfectly matches that job. So I won't say that is fraud, but it sits on a spectrum where some people are being completely honest and true, and some others are exaggerating, masking, misrepresenting their experience, and then you get a shadow AI, which is basically assuming that you can fake it thanks to AI. Even when you get the job, you can still continue faking it because on the background you're using AI for your job. So all of that speaks to inflated inflation in the number of applications and inflation in the quality and the descriptions of applications.
If I may add something before the and this is a problem because of this. Also, you've seen the past weeks, people were and companies were complaining about token consumption, right? So, and this is an insight that we identify at Darshana because we want to get to the data that is truthful in order to get a credential, right? And it's not only because you have a course in Coursera that's for the from the actual source or some other platform. That's good, but there's some more information that you have on your resume or your experience that you want to also have that verified. So with this that Sergio was mentioning, creating a lot of data, sometimes it's solved because then it's solved like badly because then you have a lot of people creating data, a lot of systems processing that, so you get filtered out in less than 1 second, right? That's one thing. The other thing is that that filter is it's happening. So because the machines right now, the machines and people, they are not generating that by hand, and then machines are like handling with all this unstructured data. They're using a lot of generative AI in order to natural language processing, for instance, like, okay, I put this resume that has the keywords, but the rest is not really good. So we are translating that from, let's say, normal systems or deterministic systems that are, find the match and then do like step by step. And we just putting that onto, all these models that are processing words and so we're consuming a lot of tokens from both sides too, that at some point could be like really not viable because we're just
Yeah.
shifting that from systems that work kind of but they work all the way to just do the machines like talk and talk and talk and talk. So we're creating another problem there, and that's
something
what.
is
Yeah,
something is going to crash.
it's
Definitely.
gonna crash. Right now it's crashing. Like I've seen people like I also use a lot of we'll talk about that after. But then if you see the news, some companies are shutting down all the consumption for tokens for developers and other roles because that's no longer sustainable. So we'll see about more like what we use, what we'll take in that. But I give you that dimension because that's happening right now, and we are responsible. We are all responsible for that.
Yeah, it's the tragedy of the commons problem.
Yes.
Everybody is incentivized to act like that individually and spray as much applications as possible. And here's another chart from Get on Board. We have different seniority levels in positions in jobs that are posted on the platform. So expert is the highest, and here you can see how in the last quarter. The average applications per expert job has been widely increasing, and obviously this doesn't correlate with the number of expert people in the platform. Is just that more applicants are being incentivized or adjusting their applications to fit more and more of these expert jobs. So basically, everybody's applying more and more and more, and daring to apply to more and more and more skilled jobs. And this is the example of the noise problem that the market is facing and the recruiters are facing. So all of this speaks about the need to differentiate ourselves and stand out from all this noise. And the next slide, I think, is crucial for our point of view about this, which and not hinted at it some minutes ago, about how what you do in your day to day completely changes, but what remains is how well are you at solving certain problems better than anyone or better than most. um, so the tasks are things that you do to solve a problem, but choosing a problem to solve, having a clear sense of how to solve it, and being able to break that down into specific tasks that either you or an AI or other people can execute. I think it's going to be crucial. So that's why we say skills expire and problems don't, and we are going to uh, get a deep dive about the specific problems in a minute. But I think the how you define your career, how you define the value you add to the market, is more about the kinds of problems you are better at solving, and the context in which you solve them. Anybody can build an app now. Can you build an app in a regulatory environment? Can you build an app having to manage complex stakeholders? Can you build an application balancing a global team? So w- the context in which you solve a problem is part of the problem you're solving. And so your personal experience starts gaining more weight and more relevance than ever on what's different about you and what's different about yourself. And this is part of why when we introduce ourselves, we talk a little bit about our backgrounds, because those backgrounds are the lens and the map we use to solve these kinds of problems. And that allows us to say we are better at understanding these kinds of problems than most people, and that's why we are a good fit for talking about this and also solving these kinds of problems.
And I want to add something, because besides talking about AI in a responsible way, like like giving insights on this, Sergio and myself, we are both, we call it musicians. I like to compose, and so I don't do a lot of things like polish. But Sergio did. He does. He has some good music on on Spotify, right? But what I mentioned this is because, and also like I like to mention, we do a lot of things, but it's part of our not only what we do at work, like we sit at 9 a.m. or before. We do things. We have interpersonal skills, soft skills, hard skills. There's several ways to classify that from the systems, countries, continents. There's standards for that, but that's not fitting anymore. So that's why we bring this back to the table. And also, let me mention something. There's some things I'm good at. I'm a martial artist. I done martial arts for years, and then I think that helped me. For instance, there's some type of exercise where you have like a lot of people hitting you at the same time, so you need to solve that. So that's more about keeping yourself calm and just blocking or doing a technique. But then years after, I mentioned I was working as an email engineer. I also work at data centers. So whenever there's something like like all the screens are in red. So I was one of the ones that I was good at keeping calm and just going step by step, even if the process wasn't defined or was defined, but solving that thing. It could last 10 minutes, it could last 6 hours, doesn't matter. So that type of skill that you have, maybe you do other things. You're a musician, you run marathons, so you need to keep yourself like training every day, right? That type of stuff that you have completely translates to your skill. So that's part of you being yourself human, and you'll see those hints of that stuff whenever you solve something or use your mind to think about things differently. That's And then if you put, okay, I manage projects that are across countries, that's the type of thing that people are looking for. And then that mention that you bring below that, so that's
Yeah,
also yeah.
yeah. We're going even deeper into that in particular about what you dedicate your time and attention to, because that's also important. Um, I just want to say that I think that tech roles will start resembling medical specialties, because we say cardiologist, we don't say heart maintainer, or we say gastroenterologist, not digestive system fixer. And it's interesting because in the medical industry, we understand that doctors specialize, and obviously that part of that translates into certain skills, but mostly it translates into criteria and judgment of identifying certain kinds of problems and being better than anybody to solve them. Even you get sometimes like hyper specialization, like you get hand or upper extremity specialist, or shoulder or elbow specialist, and so on. And maybe that's part of what companies are starting to look for right now, especially companies that already are embracing AI with open arms. The people they look for, and believe me, they still are looking for people. Uh, they start looking for more specialized roles, and or people who are able to operate in a particular environment. For instance, it's no longer, oh, I need salespeople. Probably you want salespeople that have experience in your industry, in your company size, or navigating certain kinds of negotiations and conversations. And this has already been happening, but I think it's gonna spread to every tech role. If you can build anything with AI, well, how to build fintech SaaS has lots of particularities about it that
Mhm.
makes certain people more skilled than others, and obviously that is related to where did you work, which in turn is related to where did you want to work, and where did you spend most time on, and what with which kinds of problems are you most exposed to. And about problems, and this is I think an underrated aspect of it, which is the point four of our message here. If you can go to the next slide now.
Can we go for a question right now? Michael's asking
Okay,
before we forgot,
absolutely.
because I think that's important. Problem expertise. How do you bring positive attention to capabilities here as a candidate? Right now, it seems that experience, strategy thinkers, and leaders are being discounted or dismissed in favor of technical AI roles.
I think the translation part is crucial, uh, and this absolutely relates with slide four. But it's a you don't just understand the problem, you're able to operate in the problem. And right now operating means executing, and that very probably means using AI to execute faster or at scale or deeper. because you're not constrained by your own energy or attention in terms of execution. But that expertise has to translate into something, into a breakdown of, okay, this is how we are gonna approach the problem. And from experience, and I know Nat will agree, it's not that you can just spin up Claude Code and tell it, oh, this is my problem, and the solution won't be necessarily obvious or good, or even if you do experience that, it's probably because you already broke the problem down into what to do about it, how to tackle it. And problems are human, problems are complex. So all of that experience, I think, is valuable, but you also need to define what you are actually experienced on. And certain people are experienced in navigating a corporate environment and not much else, in terms of you might be too removed from end users. So workplace politics and workplace management, maybe it's what actually you've been exposed the most. That is a challenge, and that is a problem, because it's an intermediate problem, it's not the end user problem. Still, even in that case, because I think there's room for people building internal tools as well, and all the people operations lens is about building tools for people. So you still need to understand people, and over and over again, it's the same. Problems are human, are created by humans. So all of those nuances about interests and stakeholders and politics and tensions and conflicts of interest, and different people wanting different things, and you have to balance everything. All of that is human. All of that needs accountabilities, and all of that needs somebody caring about somebody else. And and the crucial part is being able to translate that understanding into something that it can be executed. I'm not saying, oh, you are gonna solve a politics problem with a tool. That is naive. But you do dent the problem. You do reduce the problem. You do break the big huge problem down into smaller problems that are manageable, that you, an AI, a team, can tackle. And I think, and I know not you agree with me here, that that ability is crucial, and it starts with this recognition of humanity.
And then, you know what happened? I think it's very, especially, I think Sergio myself, he's been running companies for a long time. So he's been not only, builder, but also executive. And I ran a lot of my career in corporations. So at some point, as you said, right? Michael was asking, there's some things that are, for instance, for me being a technical person, then at some point, for some companies and then for my own companies, I was sitting with C levels and boards, like explaining them about AI and generative AI. So I know by a fact that they hear about that, but actually they don't know. But some people, they will say, I don't know. So how do I bring, like, I know how to explain that. Sometimes it's difficult for me to explain that, but I have a skill to know, like, how that impacts on the EBITDA and how that impacts on, let's say, workforce reduction or repurposing, and how it, so I have the sensibility. And then I have people in front that they don't, they maybe they think they know, and maybe they are not sure, but they don't want to ask. That type of stuff, that type of sensibility on how to read the table or sitting on a board, like they want to put something on AI on this quarter on the report. That's the type of thing that I'm pretty sure, are super experienced. So you need how to read and bring all your technical expertise, and also your soft skills in order to solve that, and you really to provide value, which is the thing that I think Sergio mentioned several times. Not specifically, but that's how can I provide value with all the things that I solve, because we have humans in front making decisions. At the end, all the things are human decisions. Maybe we have machines suggesting things, or deciding things, but not really like last the decision is made by a human. So that's the type of thing that we need to. And then there's, but just let me give you one thing. This is a fact. We have experience. The thing is, how can we get to that experience if we are being on the market for some time? We It's not immediate, but we need to keep our networking doing, talk to our humans, and then ask for referrals and that type of stuff. That's the only way to tackle that, all the machines, because we already have a network, we're experienced, so we can ask other people to help us. And then let's move to this one. But this is a super interesting topic, and that's the one of the reasons we're here sharing.
Yeah, which I think leads straight into
And
the fifth point, which which I personally think is the crucial one, is the center of this conversation. How do you show and evidence this humanity? And I think the starting point is what Nat has been mentioning. You spend more time in problems that you care more about, and you are more exposed in your life to certain domains, uh, driven by what you like, what you're interested in, what you pay the most attention to, and all of that shapes your expertise in your domain. Is so it's no longer only, oh, I work at this company in this industry and doing this job. It's also uh, how much you're being exposed to them, and I think passion and interest and attention are the scarce commodities in here, and they continue to be, and maybe even more than ever, because we are more distracted than ever, and it's so easy to get into passive mode when consuming content and when interacting online. So uh, the more deliberate and intentional you are in choosing what you get exposed to defines that expertise in the problem, and that is directly tied to your interests. An AI doesn't have interests. An AI knows a little bit about everything in a theoretical level, but an AI doesn't care. You care, and for human-made problems, that is crucial. And also, problems are relational. Problems always arise between interactions between human beings, even a buyer, a seller. That's a typical starting point, but it still is a relational problem. So solving those human problems has to be human too, even if the execution is done by an AI. It's still a human problem being solved by humans, and those humans, I think, shine uh, precisely when you look through the lens of network that Nat just mentioned, who you are connected to, and obviously social connections do matter, and I'm afraid sometimes matter even more than ever, but also when you work, who sees your work and who is able to speak positively about yourself. And I'm not talking about the LinkedIn recommendations. I'm talking about uh, your teammates, your coworkers, your colleagues, uh, who can say, okay, this person is awesome to work with, and this person can actually make a team work. So that kind of verified collaboration, which is Nat's core interests, talking about interests and passions, now is getting more important than ever. And part of our job, I think, is how do we let that shine and be super visible in our resumes. And part of that is you cannot tailor use AI to tailor your resumes, because you dilute that individuality. So that has to travel more directly. What you're passionate about and what you care about and what you're most experienced about has to shine in what you display professionally.
And let me add one more thing, because right now, because of the skills and everything, the other day I was on one podcast. There's a group of Peruvians in Silicon Valley, and they put material and conferences for all over the world. And I'm Peruvian, by the way. And Sergio's from Chile, so we are neighbors. And then I think we met in Peru, and then we live everywhere else. So this is super cool. But we keep, I think, talking about these interesting things, because this is the type of stuff that we bring back to the table in terms of experience. So this podcast, we were talking. I got asked about. What about the new generation? And I've been asked a lot of these questions in the past years, not months, years. So right now, the barrier of, like, to enter the workforce. Right now, you can have a portfolio. I used to have a portfolio like many years ago, many decades ago. I have some websites. I have some things, but it took me a lot of effort, because I needed to code it from scratch and then to publish that. But then right now, you can have a complete app or portfolio of your designs, your thoughts, or your music or whatever, like in no minutes. So you can have a portfolio of things that where you demonstrate your humanity, like your skills, your technical skills, your you know um, common sense, everything else. So right now the barrier of entry is low, but then you have a lot of more information, right? So you can insert yourself into workforce, not easily because you have a lot of competition, but at least you can demonstrate things. That's a super good first, let's say, first approach. And the other thing is that there were somebody was asking me yesterday, like, what about like doing an engineering career? And so right now, I think machines are doing a lot of the work, but then what we need to do is to keep an eye on that. Like some years ago, somebody was asking me, like, I want to do video games, right? And then so I want to have these things. A lot of the video games, you have tools to build them, but then behind the tools, somebody's building those tools that do a lot of math and calculus in order to do the animations. Not only the artists, but also the actual people, engineers, mathematicians, and computer sciences that build that. This is a niche that we need to keep those tools evolving. So that's the type of thing that we need to think of. What's my niche? And we're going to talk about that. I'm specialized on this, not only because I'm good at building fintechs in Latin America, but also because I'm good at something else and my common sense. So what we are amplifying right now, right? In Darshana, what we are looking for is to get that data that is trustable, to amplify that, right? So at some point, this, because this is a standard, so this is in some countries is already part of your national identity, so this is the truth. It's nothing else. You share that, this is true, this you had the experience, this is the actual thing that you did. So what we have right now is a solution that does that, so we go to the source. But the most important thing here is that we don't only put that, but also because this is also the wave. You've seen companies being sued to using people's data. Right now, people are owning their own data. So we're helping also with that. So not only Darshana, but a number of other companies in some constructions that are helping people to get their data. This is my truthful data, so that I can use it on my to amplify my impact as a human, and just cross the borders of AI and machines filtering resumes. So this is what we're doing. But then the thing is that it's not only about a problem of using a tool or a platform or Darshana or get on board. We really need to think and intentionally what we are doing with our data. If our data is everywhere else, it's not, it's not stored in safe places, we don't own our data, we're going to have a problem there. And this is what we are just going back to the point where we have a lot of noise, and then I can build up about my profile, and then I don't know what to do with that. Can you share more about that, Sergio?
Yeah, this is one of the problems I care the most about, and one of the problems we're trying to solve at Get On Board, which is the noise problem. And as I said, it's getting more difficult now thanks to AI, because people can make themselves look better on paper, and then upon an inspection, people people and recruiters start realizing that people is not meeting expectations. So part of the way of for me of battling this, obviously there's a fight we are giving on the tool side, trying to reduce this noise and try to filter by the people who actually have most lived experience with this kind of problem. But uh, I think it starts with defining those problems. Uh, what problems are you most experienced on? And that leads me to this the next point, which is, it sounds a bit paradoxical, but you can use AI to be more human. And I think it all has to do with attention. Attention is scarce. Attention doesn't scale. If you try to pay attention to too many things, you start drifting off, you start disengaging, you start disconnecting, and the quality of what you do suffers. And this is more true than ever with AI. But if you're strategic about what do you delegate and what do you not delegate, what you don't delegate, I think you can use AI to remove that part of the tasks that consume the most of your attention span and then the most of your ability to care, um, basically the chores. So you, as a person, can devote more time to understanding these problems and caring about others. Uh, and also, how do you guide the AI? What kind of context do you feed the AI? How do you all of this talk about the guardrails? I
Mhm.
think it's ultimately about rules and context, information that you give the AI, and the AI already knows everything. And this is fun when skills first arrived to Cloud Code and Codex. I was like, why an AI needs skills? The AI already knows what to do, but the AI, just as humans, needs focus, needs a priority, needs a goal. So and so the LLM theoretically knows already everything it needs to know, but it's you who it's you that feeds the AI extra information that the AI might not have in their training, the information about your business, information about your customers, about priorities, about rules, do's and don'ts. So that decision speaks to your expertise. It's basically, and I always come back to the book Principles by Ray Dalio, and he wrote it about setting your decision making criteria on paper so others can follow. And I think this is this is the most useful framework for AI. So that process of shaping and uh, setting the path for AI to move and setting all these scaffolding and all these harnesses and all these guardrails is downloading your criteria and your expertise to something that the machine can use. And it's not that, in a way, it's removing you from the process, but also it's freeing you up to continue exploring the higher parts of the problem, which is the relational part, the human part, the part of where about understanding others, because otherwise that knowledge freezes. And I
Mhm.
think this is super important because you can be expert in a human problem up to now, but if you stop getting exposed to that problem, your knowledge goes stale, and you start looking at the yesterday's newspaper and then a last year's newspaper, and you cease to be effective at tackling those problems today. So that needs you aware, present, listening, and you need time for that, and you need energy for that. So I think you can use AI to free you up to continue caring about these higher order problems.
What about our tech stack, Sergio? So I think we mentioned at this point we have maybe some frameworks in terms of the ways we approach and solve things. We have different missions right now. We have different missions also over the years, right? I did a lot of work with women in tech. Sergio's been involved in startups and helping also other founders and startups like for a long time. Although also we both are helping talent in general, like for from years now. You can have maybe different approaches, but then we trade a lot of things like every day almost, right, Sergio? And then what happens is that when I find something that is interesting, and then maybe I can try, and then Sergio can try because he has a different setup on the tech stack that he has. But it's been evolving, and I think we mentioned we both use Cloud Code. We use other tools too. I have Kiro from AWS as an development interface, but I also use that for my daily tasks, not only for coding or for deploying systems. I also do use it for presentations and design and a lot of other stuff because I have skills and I have agents that I train to do things. And then the thing is that we share a lot of this stuff. We of course are aware of the token problem, but also we are. I think at this point, for myself, we're moving like maybe there's some wave right now. We're just trying to move forward through the ways. Like there's a lot of things on X and Instagram, like download this skill. Of course, some things you can download, and then they said, "Oh, it's asking for permission of everything, not only your machine but your accounts and everything." Like I won't use that. But then it's easier to use, yes. But then that's the type of thing that we need to manage. But Sergio, you want to talk more about your tech stack or the humanity of your tech stack?
Yeah, I think it's the communities we relate to, and part of what excites me about Get on Board through all these years is uh, connecting the Latin American tech community to job opportunities that are there for them. Many of them are from the US. Many others are within Latin America, but I think the way we build the product is informed by this knowledge, and that the tools have changed. I used to write code by hand. I'm not a programmer, or I used not to be a programmer. I think right now, with the modern definition of programming, I am because I'm using basically the same tools and using the same way and care about the tech stack. But
Mhm.
once again, that is a distillation of the humans I work with and the humans I meet, and the humans we partner with, and their problems and their needs, and and from below, I think the tech itself is more fluid than ever because you can switch easier and faster. uh, a tool for a job, and you are not constrained by your own skill anymore, so you can rewrite your app in a different technology if you need it. Obviously it has to be relevant, has to be there has to have a reason, but um, you can do that. So all of that hard part is getting more fluid now, and the upper layer is more important than ever. And about that community and that stack, I think the last point we want to make in this presentation, and the borderless part of the title is, and this is our take, and it is an, I won't say a hot take, but it is an opinionated one, about, in this context, the future is remote, because if what you value about people working with you is their exposure to a problem, you cannot be constrained by location anymore, unless of course your problem is local. If you're solving a problem for New York City, of course you want a person living in New York City because they're directly exposed to those kinds of problems. So obviously there's,
Kinds of problems, right? Like smell and you want you you want to figure out.
oh, I mean, any problem of a specific community city, and maybe now even you're gonna want people from the Bronx for solving people problems that are specific to the Bronx. Uh, so that's one dimension of exposure. And that part is local, but I think regarding industries, regarding international problems, or regarding tools, you are going to want the person most passionate about that specific problem. And that person might be near you, but that person might be on the other side of the world. And you're not constrained by skills anymore. It's not like, oh, I need a Java programmer, and they may be super expert about something, but I need them to code in Java. That used to be the case. Now that part can be delegated to an AI, and it's not the hard part. The hard part is, oh, who is more passionate than anyone, who has the most exposure to this problem than anyone, precisely because AI is lowering the barriers for everyone. So the way you as a company, as a product, differentiate in the market is that you are able to gather the the highest nerds, the most expert people, the most passionate people about that problem in particular, and that makes you solving the problem better than anyone. So you have to be open to work anywhere and everywhere. And also the execution part of the problem is getting more delegated to agents that don't have schedules, and don't go to sleep, or they don't suffer jet lag or anything. So, and the coordination between humans in the upper layer, I think it doesn't have to necessarily happen in real time. Can happen asynchronously. We at Get On Board have been a remote team for 15 years. Uh, and so we've been navigating this remote coordination a lot, and AI fits naturally also because what you do as a remote team, which is putting everything into paper, declaring everything, making everything explicit, because you don't have the water cooler conversation, so everything has to be documented, and that is gold for AI, and that is super is the best raw materials that AI can have. So embracing that remoteness as a coworker, as a person looking for a job, I think it's also super important, and that is also a relation and a human problem.
Let me add one thing there, because I've been remote for some time already, and then I think there's internet penetration all over the world. And then I remember I was working in Goldman Sachs at the time in New York, and then we needed to schedule up a because my team was global, so I needed to schedule a room to get to this machine where we can, interact with the remote team all over the world with the big screen. And that probably the machine like cost a lot. But what I learned there is not about like, okay, right now we can just have my cell phone and my headphones and I sit everywhere, especially when we sit in Mexico City, right? And to go work. But that there's not only the communications part which not causes friction anymore, but also the cultural thing. Like you have people like maybe they wait for other people to interact, and then but you also learn a lot about that. I travel also to meet my teammates, but also you realize that there's people all over, even in Latin America. Like we are both from neighbor countries, but we are similar but different. But so we I think remote also is not only about giving that I'm the best person to do this anywhere, but also it's about a putting learning about all things cultural, like opens windows to everywhere. So that's super cool. Um, so finally, we can solve problems. We can make our expertise, use platforms like Darshana, apply in platforms like Get On Board, or anywhere you want to do this. But you need to use amplify AI to amplify it, and then you need also to join communities like ours. And then if you have any other thing that you want to, let's say, ask about, we are online. But then the main thing here is that you can have a good, career. Also asking for help from other people. That's super important. Let me see. Let me go to see if there's only Sachin
There's a
asked.
question. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, one question here. So for me as a student right now, it's more important than ever to provide proof of your skills rather than add them to a resume. I, I'll put the survey what I answered that. Not only proof, yes, it's also proving, but also gaining the experience because there's several ways. If you see that you have these three skills, you can put them on a resume, but it's better if you have a link on the resume, like proof of that, because there's a lot of filtering. Like people, they put together something on Cloud that look good, and then they put it like as a reference, right? I did this. So it's more important for you to build the skill, but also be able to demonstrate that. Because if you build a skill and you don't pass the filter, that's the other thing that is difficult for you. And
Mm.
let me we are over, so we are here, we here have the survey. And before we close, let me tell you this thing. When you were talking about coding, I remember that I was doing pseudocode. So I was writing code and algorithms in paper when I was at school. And then I had some interviews when you go to the whiteboard, and then you do code on the whiteboard. So if that skill is relevant, I think it is, because then you know how things are built in the inside. And then if you really want to be competitive, then you need to know how things work also. And then because that's also helpful. So just call me. You're in the zombie apocalypse. I know how to code by hand. I know how to use a sword, and also I know how to fix some things. So I'll be
Yeah.
helpful.
I just wanted to add to Sachin's question that
Yeah.
the way the proof is social, the proof is relational. So it's not, oh, in a vacuum I can do this and that. That I think that's no longer important. The thing is, how did you execute your skills working with others, and who are those others that can attest to your skills and expertise and the problems you've been solving. And I think that's why it's so important to make an effort to be part of communities and get together with other people to build things. I think now it's more tempting than ever to build solo, and it's super fun, and you have no limits. But it is important to team up, at least with one person, two people, but team up, getting exposed to other people's mindset and views, uh, because that social part is what gives your resume credibility and what also keeps your skills human. And I think that is the summary of this conversation. Your skills, your expertise, your problem solving is human, and humans will continue to create new problems. So let's use AI to free up ourselves, our attention, our time, to continue understanding these new problems that are emerging and being created as we speak. So, Nat, thank you so much
Thank
for
you, team.
creating this space, and thank you everybody for
Thank you, everybody,
joining
for
us
the
and
questions.
for the questions and the conversation. It's been
We'll
great.
send you the survey also on Pariful and the batch later. So thank you for joining. Ciao.
Bye bye. Thank you.